court judge partially lifted a gag order on Donald Trump on Tuesday, following his conviction on criminal charges stemming from hush money paid to a porn star before the 2016 election. The revised order now allows Trump to speak publicly about witnesses in the case and eases a prohibition on his commenting about the jury. However, it keeps in place restrictions on his statements about individual prosecutors and others involved in the case. A separate order barring Trump or lawyers from either side from identifying members of the anonymous jury remains in effect. Prosecutors said last week that Trump supporters had attempted to identify jurors and threatened violence against them. Trump's lawyers argued the gag order was stifling the Republican presidential candidate's campaign speech and said it might limit his ability to respond to attacks from Democratic President Joe Biden during their debate on Thursday. Trump's lawyer did not immediately respond to a request for comment. A spokesperson for Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office declined to comment.
It's known for its idyllic sandy beaches and now a major US espionage court case. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is heading to the tiny Pacific island of Saipan. His appearance at a courtroom there could end his 14-year legal saga. Assange is expected to plead guilty to a single criminal charge in a deal that will allow him to return home to Australia. Saipan is the capital of the Northern Mariana Islands, a US Commonwealth in the Western Pacific. Like Guam and Puerto Rico, the group of 14 islands are part of the US, but without full state status. The roughly 51,000 residents are US citizens, but cannot vote in presidential elections. Some Northern Mariana Islands, like Saipan, host US district courts. Prosecutors say Assange wanted to go to the court close to his home of Australia, but not on the continental US. Here's the governor of the Northern Mariana Islands, Arnold Palacios.
There's less potential for a lot of chaos with the press and press coverage and all that. Wanted to get this done efficiently and get it done in a U.S. court.
U.S. swimming star Michael Phelps told a congressional panel on Tuesday that anti-doping measures concerning Chinese swimmers have fallen short ahead of the Paris Olympics. Phelps was joined by fellow gold medalist Alison Schmidt as well as the CEO of the U.S. anti-doping agency Travis Tygart. They all testified to lawmakers they've lost faith in the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, over its lack of reform. Congresswoman Kathy Rogers asked Phelps what stands in the way of competitions being free and fair of illegal drugs.
I think lack of level playing fields, lack of rule following across the board, right? You heard the schedule that we have to give every hour of every single day. They have to know exactly where we are. USADA knows exactly where we are. And again, we are okay with that. If everybody else is doing that, then that's what I want. Right? I want to be able to stand up to the block with somebody next to me and be like, all right, cool, this is me versus you. It's not me versus you and 7 other drugs.
While neither will compete in Paris, Phelps, with 28 medals to his name, is the most decorated Olympian of all time, and Schmidt won 10 medals over 4 games. In April, WADA confirmed reports that Chinese swimmers tested positive for a banned substance, leading to calls for accountability and fair competition. WADA declined to testify at the Tuesday hearing, citing the focus on the Chinese swimmers' case. Travis Tygart said WADA should have taken immediate action.
They should have immediately, provisionally suspended the athletes, take them off the playing field. That's mandatory under the rules. That was not done. WADA has the appeal right when anti-doping organizations like China in this case fail to impose a mandatory provisional suspension. WADA should have immediately appealed that, like they did in the Russian figure skater case, if you remember. Exactly. She was not provisionally suspended by Russia, surprise, and they appealed that.
Lawmakers of both parties slammed WADA's handling of the situation, calling it unacceptable. Phelps highlighted the impact on his friends affected by the case, saying that many of them will live with the what-ifs for the rest of their lives, and criticised WADA for its inconsistent enforcement of policies around the world.
Youth-led protests against proposed tax hikes are causing a major headache for Kenya's government. That's as President William Ruto finds himself caught on the horns of a dilemma over the country's finances. one of those horns is Kenya's public debt. It stands at 68% of GDP. That's higher than the 55% recommended by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Amid acute liquidity challenges and uncertainty over its ability to access capital from financial markets, Kenya has turned to the IMF for help. It, in turn, has urged the government to meet revenue targets to access more funding. And that's led to the proposed tax hikes in the Kenya Finance Bill, which aims to raise an additional $2.7 billion in revenues. But the other horn of the dilemma is a rising cost of living for Kenya's population. That's been driven by inflation and steep tax rises in last year's finance bill. Ruto, elected on a pledge to uplift the lives of the poor, used the 2023 bill to introduce a housing tax and to raise the top personal income tax rate. Protesters and opposition parties want the whole 2024 bill to be scrapped. The proposed measures that have triggered protests include new levies on basic commodities like bread, vegetable oil and sugar, as well as a new motor vehicle circulation tax. An eco-levy on most manufactured goods, including sanitary towels and diapers, is also on the cards. In addition, the bill proposes increasing existing taxes on financial transactions. Ruto has since endorsed recommendations to scrap some of the taxes, including on car ownership, bread, and the eco-levy on locally manufactured goods.
We are going to have a conversation.
But the Finance Ministry has said such concessions would blow a $1.56 billion hole in the 2024 to 25 budget and necessitate spending cuts. Once passed by Parliament, the bill will need to be signed into law by Ruto within 14 days. He has acknowledged protesters and promised to engage with them. It's unclear when this will happen. It's also unclear whether the protests will intensify if the bill is passed. The social media-driven movement lacks a clear leadership structure, but many young protesters have vowed to keep demonstrating.
Peru will stop listing individuals who identify as transgender, among others, as suffering from mental disorders. The announcement from the country's health ministry on Tuesday came after backlash to the move that critics called unnecessary discrimination. Hundreds of protesters took the streets of the capital Lima last month to demand the new law be scrapped. It described those who identify as transgender, along with, quote, cross-dressers and those with, quote, gender identity disorders, as mentally ill and eligible for health services via both public and private providers. Opponents of the law argued the change was unnecessary, since existing rules already allowed for universal access to mental health services. Alex Hernandez, a psychologist from the feminist organization More Equality, explains why the Tuesday reversal is an important win for the trans and broader LGBT community.
To give visibility, there's been a change in this manual of diagnosis, which removes LGBT people from the chapters on mental illness. It also sends a message to the citizens, politicians, authorities, and people who don't believe it deserves special attention that there's international and scientific progress which confirms that LGBT people and, in particular, trans people don't have any illness.
Peru's health ministry said Tuesday it will no longer refer to the individuals as suffering from any disorder, but instead will use the term gender discordance for purposes of mental and behavioral health classifications eligible for care.
Rivian shares soared in late trade Tuesday after Volkswagen said it was investing up to $5 billion in the EV maker. The stock gained around 50% in extended hours following the news. It all comes as part of a new joint venture meant to share EV architecture and software, and it will give Rivian the funding it needs to develop new, more affordable models. It should also help its cash flow turn positive. In return, VW will get to use Rivian technology. That would not just be at its namesake unit, but across group brands like Audi, Porsche and Lamborghini. Analysts see that as a big win for the German giant, which has struggled with EV software. It's over budget and behind schedule on goals it set for developing the technology. Industry watchers say it's also a big plus for Rivian, giving investors more faith in its future. It's been losing nearly $40,000 on every vehicle it delivers, though it has at least avoided filing for bankruptcy like some other startups. The company said recently it had overhauled its manufacturing process to cut costs and, hopefully, drive it towards profit. Shares in the firm had halved this year, ahead of news of the VW boost. Airbus says it's facing up to some tougher times ahead. The company has cut key production targets for its jetliners and taken a big charge on its troubled space business. Boss Guillaume Faury says the firm is facing headwinds right now. We have to bite the bullet. Airbus has cut its closely watched forecast for airliner deliveries to around 770 this year, down from about 800. Industry players had long been sceptical that it could hit the original goal. The world's largest maker of airliners has been hit by output delays caused by parts shortages. It says the supply of engines for its best-selling A320 jets has deteriorated significantly in recent months. Plans to ramp up production of the planes to record levels are being put back as a result. Faury said engine makers would have to face the consequences of delays, hinting they could face penalties. That could hit firms including Pratt & Whitney and CFM, co-owned by GE Aerospace and France's Safran. Airbus has also taken a charge of about $965 million over its troubled space unit. The company has cut its financial targets for the year as a result of all the problems. It now expects operating income of about $5.9 billion, $1 billion or more down on previous targets. Shares in the firm plunged 9% in early trade Tuesday following the glum outlook. Tesla faces new worries over the quality of its Cybertrucks. The firm has recalled more than 11,000 of the electric pickups in the US. That's over issues with windshield wipers and loose trim. Analysts say it's no big surprise about the wipers, which have long been identified as a problem.
Comes with also a very big wiper.
The Cybertruck's unusual design forced Tesla to fit huge blades, putting a bigger strain on the motors that move them. Now the problems feed into a perception of wider issues with the vehicles. One analyst told Reuters that the overall build quality of the Cybertruck was quite poor. Tesla began delivering the Blade Runner-inspired pickup in late 2023, after years of delay. It's meant to answer critics who say the firm lacks new models. Mass production is expected to begin in 2025, and Musk has said the target is 200,000 units per year. Tesla hasn't revealed how many it has shipped so far, however, and skeptics say it may lack mass market appeal. While recalls of new car models aren't unusual, it's relatively rare for Tesla, which often solves problems with over-the-air updates. The move also looks sure to raise unwelcome new questions for the Cybertruck.
FedEx shares soared 14% in extended trading Tuesday. Investors were excited after the delivery giant forecast fiscal profit for this year above analyst estimates. The US firm said it was targeting earnings of $20 to $22 per share, the midpoint of which was slightly above analyst estimates. Executives said slashing expenses and consolidating operations would boost returns even though demand remained weak for package deliveries. FedEx revenue hit $22.1 billion in the fourth quarter, up on a year earlier and above projections. Earnings excluding items grew 7.2% to $1.34 billion. CEO Raj Subramaniam said the results were unprecedented in this current environment and he expects the momentum to continue. FedEx's unprofitable US Postal Service contract will end in late September. The firm previously said eliminating the costs of supporting Postal Service volume would help profitability improve, but the revenue side of its business remains challenging. Industrial production and parcel shipping demand are underwhelming as inflation and high interest rates take a toll.
NVIDIA short sellers have raked in nearly $5 billion in profits, at least on paper, from the AI chip designer's sharp sell-off over the past 3 sessions. That's according to data analytics firm Ortex Technologies. The stock's meteoric rise culminated on June 18th when NVIDIA eclipsed Microsoft as the world's most valuable company. Short sellers saw the milestone as an opportunity to bet against the tech firm. Since then, NVIDIA has handed the title of most valuable company back to Microsoft after a 3-day slump in shares wiped $430 billion off its market capitalization. Some attributed NVIDIA's sharp pullback to investors rotating out of high-flying AI stocks and into other sectors as 2024 approaches the halfway mark. Despite the declines, optimism around NVIDIA's role in powering the artificial intelligence boom has driven the stock up 145% this year, the second-best performer on the S&P 500. NVIDIA's recent slide ended Tuesday morning with shares rising roughly 5%.
Lufthansa will add an environmental charge of up to $77 to its fares. The airline group made the announcement Tuesday, joining at least one European rival in doing so. The industry is fighting to cover the cost of meeting new EU rules on reducing emissions. Airlines have warned regulations requiring them to use more expensive sustainable jet fuel could drive up costs. Ticket prices have already surged in recent years in the post-COVID travel boom. That's raised fears further increases could start putting travellers off from flying. The German airline group said fares will go up between €1 and €72 or $77, depending on the type of ticket. It will be on all flights departing from EU countries, Britain, Norway and Switzerland. Some of the increases are effective from this week and others from next year. Lufthansa shares were down just over 1% after the update. Aviation is held responsible for about 2% of the world's emissions, but considered one of the hardest sectors to decarbonise. Fuel for flights can't be easily replaced with other kinds of power. European regulators introduced rules that ask fuel suppliers to ensure 2% of fuel at EU airports is sustainable aviation fuel by 2025 and 70% in 2050. A source said Air France-KLM is considering similar measures to Lufthansa.
This is a lab-grown, synthetic, infected skin sample. Researchers at Sheffield Hallam University say it could be the key to helping people with eczema.
What we're doing is we're making an inflamed skin model and looking at the differences between normal skin and inflamed skin and how bacteria have a different relationship with inflamed skin compared to normal skin.
Though synthetic skin isn't new, they say this is the first that truly represents skin problems people suffer from.
What we're doing is we're growing artificial skin in the lab, and we are making an inflamed model of the skin that's representative of atopic dermatitis.
Amy Grayson is a postdoctoral researcher at Sheffield Hallam University.
And then what we do is we put healthy skin bacteria on the models to make a more representative model, because previous models in the past have only used inflamed skin, but they haven't factored in the fact that the skin microbiome has an effect on how the skin grows.
The school's commercial research unit is collaborating with US consumer goods giant Colgate-Palmolive. Their goal is to perfect an artificial skin that not only simulates the full thickness of human skin, but also accurately emulates its microbiome, including bacteria, fungi, and viruses. It would have important implications for the skincare industry, 20 years after the European Union banned animal testing for cosmetic purposes. The technique relies on mass spectrometry machines developed by Waters Corporation, which can identify molecules by their weight. With it, cosmetic and pharmaceutical companies would be able to test products as if they're being applied to natural human skin. Jim Langridge is the Director of Health Sciences at Waters Corporation.
The technology that we develop here at Waters allows researchers to probe the layers of artificial skin so they can determine very precisely the penetration of different drugs and different molecules into those artificial skin sections. So they can determine the different layers, and they can also determine how far that drug has penetrated into those layers using our unique technology.
Eczema is a complex, recurring, inflammatory skin condition affecting more than 200 million people worldwide. The condition can be hard to manage. Sufferers often struggle to identify what triggers it to flare up and how to treat it once it does.
for too long, it's been trial and error for a lot of people.
Andrew Proctor is the chief executive of the National Eczema Society.
Where you've got something like this, a novel research approach, it means that there's an opportunity of understanding better what works and why it works. And so the opportunity to help people manage their eczema more effectively is just really exciting.
Stocks ended mixed on Tuesday, with the Nasdaq rallying thanks to a rebound in shares of Nvidia. The Dow dropped 0.75%, the S&P 500 gained 0.4%, and the Nasdaq climbed 1.25%. After a three-session sell-off, AI chip leader Nvidia bounced back with a gain of more than 6.5%. That helped turn the tables for the major stock indexes a day after the Dow closed at a one-month high, while the S&P 500 and Nasdaq both slid. George Cipollone is portfolio manager at Penn Mutual Asset Management.
If you look at the markets are an exact reversal of what happened yesterday. And actually, the prior few days, we had actually had some hope because value stocks had started to do better again. Energy names, for example, financial names had done better than even tech. And so what we're seeing today is a complete reversal of that. All year has been a growth-dominated market, and today we're right back to it.
Among other tech names, shares of Alphabet and Meta Platforms both saw solid gains. Other movers included cruise operator Carnival, which gained more than 8.5% after raising its annual profit forecast for the second time this year. Dragging down the Dow were shares of retail giants. Home Depot shed 3.5%, while Walmart stock dropped 2% after the company's CFO flagged the second quarter as the, quote, most challenging quarter at an investor conference in London.
Justin Bieber's extravagant tour rider demands continue to haunt his reputation, even though he claims to be a changed man. Justin Bieber has always been a pop sensation with a massive following, but his outrageous demands during tours have only worsened his public image. During his Purpose World Tour, details of Bieber's tour rider leaked, revealing incredibly specific and costly demands, particularly for the India leg of his tour. The leaked tour rider listed 10 luxury sedans, 2 Volvo buses for his crew, and a Rolls-Royce for Bieber. Additionally, Bieber requested containers filled with items like ping-pong tables, a fridge, a washing machine, a wardrobe, and a massage table. His culinary needs included top culinary experts providing 5 meals per day, all renamed after his popular songs, and a variety of health foods such as coconut water, protein powder, and raw organic honey. Bieber also had a long list of specific snacks and drinks, including Ghirardelli dark chocolate with sea salt and almonds, and Swedish fish. To ensure his comfort, 2 5-star hotels were fully booked for security reasons, and he required 13 backstage rooms, each decorated with silver cutlery, fresh flowers, scented candles, and other luxurious items. Bieber even requested helicopter transport to the concert venue, avoiding traditional road travel. This level of extravagance was a stark contrast to his earlier tour rider from 2010, when Bieber was 16 and just starting his career. Back then, his demands were relatively modest, including basic amenities like private bathrooms, simple snacks, and vitamin water. His only unusual requests were packages of white shirts and Vicks steam inhalers. Throughout his career, Bieber has faced numerous controversies, including run-ins with the law, disrespectful behavior, and public scandals. Despite his attempts to apologize and improve his behavior, the extravagant tour demands painted him as self-centered and out of touch with reality. These demands contradict the more mature image Bieber has tried to cultivate in recent years, especially after getting married and expressing a desire to become a father. While his tour rider doesn't define him entirely, it certainly complicates his efforts to repair his reputation.
3, 2, 1, ignition. Engine full power, and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Falcon Heavy, go NOAA, go NASA, and go you.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. Telemetry nominal. And back, Jill.
The Ukrainian constitution, meanwhile, reaffirms the European identity of Ukrainian people and irreversibility of Ukraine's European course. We firmly believe that the initiation of accession negotiations today mark a historic milestone of our relationship, but it's only a beginning of the longer way we will go through together. Thank you.
Меня обменяли. Все. Да, я в России. Передаю привет. Что, да?